Is Zianda, please confirm, is Ms. McQuaina joining us and is she doing an introduction?
Yes. Good evening, colleagues. I was on the other one.
Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this. Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear me. Welcome to this session, the first GPP webinar in 2022. In this moment, I'd like to invite our COO, Mrs. Mojo Mokoena, to do a word of welcome and introduction. Over to you, COO. Thank you. Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear me. Welcome to this session, the first GPP webinar in 2022. In this moment, I'd like to invite our COO, Mrs. Mojo Mokoena, to do a word of welcome and introduction. Over to you, COO. Thank you.
No, thank you, Zianda. And as I have already been introduced, my name is Mojo Mokoena, and I am so excited that we finally have the sessions with the RPs. It has always been our plan. I mean, since the last conference that we had, some of you were there. We saw the need that at some stage we need to have a platform. We've been doing this for the Zianda. And as I have already been introduced, my name is Mojo Mokoena, and I am so excited that we finally have the sessions with the RPs. It has always been our plan. I mean, since the last conference that we had, some of you were there. We saw the need that at some stage we need to have a platform. We've been doing this for the interns. There seems to be an echo Z on my side, but I hope all will go well. And maybe just one of the things I wanted to discuss today, first to welcome everyone and thank you so much for coming in on a Monday in the afternoon for you to hear us. We really appreciate. We know that you are very busy, especially on Mondays. I was once in a hospital. There seems to be an echo Z on my side, but I hope all will go well. And maybe just one of the things I wanted to discuss today, first to welcome everyone and thank you so much for coming in on a Monday in the afternoon for you to hear us. We really appreciate. We know that you are very busy, especially on Mondays. I was once in a hospital. And I understand the pressure you have to work with, but mostly also to express from Pharmacy Council our appreciation for the work that you are doing. And I know these days all we talk about is vaccination, vaccination, vaccination. And we want to thank you for being out there, for the permits you have applied for the vaccination services that you are supporting. I understand the pressure you have to work with, but mostly also to express from Pharmacy Council our appreciation for the work that you are doing. And I know these days all we talk about is vaccination, vaccination, vaccination. And we want to thank you for being out there, for the permits you have applied for the vaccination services that you are supporting. Pharmacy is the second largest. participant in ensuring that vaccination becomes a success, but we want to appeal to you from Pharmacy Council. It is important that we all comply to the conditions that is attached to those permits. Please go and check those because they talk directly with yourself. If you choose to outsource the services, make sure that compliance in ensuring that vaccination becomes a success. But we want to appeal to you from Pharmacy Council. It is important that we all comply to the conditions that is attached to those permits. Please go and check those because they talk directly with yourself. If you choose to outsource the services, make sure that compliance, because you remain accountable.
Good evening, colleagues. Thank you, COO, for the introduction. My name is Precious Shabangu. I am a manager in the practice unit of the Professional Affairs Department at Pharmacy Council. I will be the one taking you through a few slides. I know it's in the evening, some of you are working. So I thank you, hope COO, not to keep you for the introduction. My name is Precious Shabangu. In our introduction, we will take questions in the practice unit at the end Professional Affairs Department. I hope I am audible. I will be the one taking you through a few slides. I know with the presentation. So as the first slides indicate, I will be taking you through pharmacy inspections, in particular, the new process that we've added, that is self-inspections. There seems to be a bit of a slides on my behalf. I will allow her to do so as I'm not able to move my slides from my side. Thank you, Zianda. Maybe we can go to slide number 2. So, colleagues, I will briefly touch on the legislative background in relation to inspections. As you all know, our existence basically is on the fact that we are a legislative body. So it is quite important for us to just remind you of why we are doing these inspections. I will then outline the inspection process, touch on the pharmacy grading that most of you are aware of already, and then look into the self-inspection that we introduced earlier on this month. And with that, I will also show you how you are able to reset your questionnaire, your self-inspection questionnaire. And then we will just show you where you are able to access general information on our website. Next slide, Z. So regarding the legislative background, we all know that as Pharmacy Council, we are mandated by the Act to ensure that as you practice pharmacy, you uphold and you safeguard the rights of the general public. So through our universally acceptable standards of pharmacy practice, both in the public and private sector. And it is also our mandate to be able to carry out our mandate, we actually have to conduct pharmacy premises inspections in terms of Section 38A of the Act. We carry out these inspections to check on rules relating to good pharmacy practice. And in this way, we can be comfortable that the patients and the general public that access the services provided by yourselves is actually getting a good service. So that's basically why we are mandated to do inspections in line with that legislative background. Next slide, see. So the inspection process is indicated on that graphic. We are, as the Office of the Registrar of Pharmacy Council, we schedule inspections and then we allocate an inspector that is representing us. So the inspector that we allocate is there representing council in conducting that inspection. Once the inspection has been conducted, we then receive a report from that inspector that would have come on our behalf. And it is our duty as the office to then evaluate that report received from the inspector, and we then release a grading according to what the report would have indicated. We then expect that on receipt of our grading certificate and acceptance of the findings from the inspector, you would then give us an improvement plan to say from the shortcomings that the inspector would have come across as they were doing the inspection on your premises. These are the things that were found not to be compliant to GPP. Therefore, you will then put this plan in place to deal with them. We then evaluate the very same response that you would give us to check if indeed your response does allow us to probably look at evaluating or regrading you based on how you would have responded. So that is basically the cycle that I'm sure most of you are aware of. In the middle there, you will see that we then have put a requirement of self-inspection that we expect every RP of any pharmacy should actually comply with, that by the 1st of March annually, you then submit a self-inspection. Next slide, Z. So pre-inspection, so before we actually send the inspector out to you, as indicated, we would allocate an inspector that is suitably available to come and do the inspection at your pharmacy. But what we hope you would have done before even the inspector pitches up at your pharmacy is that you would have assessed yourself through this self-inspection that we've made available on the secure site of our website. So the self-inspection is aimed at you being ready for when the inspector comes. You actually would have gone through the questions yourself and checked what is it that you need or what is it that you are not compliant with, so that by the time the inspector comes, you are actually ready. So that is the pre-inspection part of the process. Next slide, Z. Now, maybe some of you would not be aware as to when you are due for an inspection. So if you go onto our website, you will then be able to see whether you are due for an inspection when you click on the Registered Organizations tab, under which the 4 areas, that is pharmacies, pharmacy inspections, higher education institutions, and skills development providers would pop up. And because you are interested in finding out when exactly are you due for that inspection, you would then click under pharmacy inspections. When you click under pharmacy inspections, you will then have an option to click on due for inspection. And there, when you click, you will actually be prompted to click and put your pharmacy Y number, which will then indicate when is your next inspection due. Next slide, Z. So as I've indicated in my earlier slides, I will be showing you the introduced self-inspection that we required of you by the 1st of March this year. I know that a lot of you had been struggling, so hopefully this session will actually equip you to go back and be able to access it. So the expectation with this self-inspection is that you will be able to access it when you log in using your profile as a registered person. So you would click under, so once you've logged in and you are under the practice tab, you will see there an area on the left that talks to self-inspection. Next slide, Z. So you will be prompted to then click here to actually start the self-inspection itself. So when you click under self-inspection, the next tab will open. Next slide, Z. You will then be prompted to start that self-inspection, wherein your the pharmacy details will be appearing, and the questions as appearing on the questionnaire, similar to what the inspector would be using when they visit you, would pop up. So we expect that you will go through all the sections as indicated with the self-inspection as they pop up. You will honestly answer as the status of your pharmacy is at the point of the self-inspection. So if you are not compliant, you do put that as not yet compliant, but if you have or you are meeting the requirements according to that particular question, you then click compliant as indicated. So next slide, Z. So some of you might have come across or have experienced difficulty in accessing the self-inspection questionnaire, or you might want to just restart it because maybe you tried it and you didn't finish, or some mishap happened regarding the system. So you are able to actually reset this self-inspection questionnaire on your side. So what you need to click at the top where the total, the number of sections appears, you get a tab that is indicating inspection grade. You click on that. And the next slide, it will then give you an option to reset the questionnaire that is currently appearing on your side. So if you click there, you should be able to then access a new questionnaire to start your self-inspection. Next slide, see. So it will then prompt you. Oh, can you just go? Yeah, thanks. It will then prompt you to reset the self-assessment questionnaire, and it should appear as reset from your side. You should now be able to start your self-inspection. Next slide. So once you've done your self-inspection, hopefully by the time the inspector comes to conduct the inspection, on our side, it would have been reflecting as submitted, and we expect that your assessment or your self-assessment, if it was honest, it would not be too different to what the inspector would find when they come to conduct the inspection. Next slide. So at the end of the inspection by our inspector, we then implore you to go back on the secure side under the practice tab, where you would access an inspection survey. So this is quite important, colleagues, because we need to be able to weigh how our inspectors are performing as they are representing us. What we find is that most RPs do not go back and complete this inspection survey, because we need your feedback in terms of how the inspection was, where as council we can improve, and so forth and so on. So if you go back, you will then be able to check under your inspections. Once the inspection has been completed, you then be able to access the inspection survey. Next slide, Z. So the inspector, as I've indicated earlier, will give us the report to say I was at this Y number on this day. The RP or whoever the pharmacist have found has signed and acknowledged that I was there. We will then evaluate what the inspector has said on the report, and based on your performance on that report, we then release the grade. Once you have submitted your response, remember, as I've said earlier, you then get a chance to say, do you agree with what the inspector has said, and what is it in terms of your shortcomings are you planning to do? So in a form of an improvement plan, you then give us an idea of how you are going to deal with whatever shortcomings have been found during the that you indeed deserve to be an A instead of a B, for an example. Next slide. So how do you submit an improvement plan? Again, under the secure side, after having done your inspection survey, and once we have evaluated your grading, you are able to go back and view your grading and what we've released there. And if you've not submitted your improvement plan, it will flag as indicated to say we are awaiting your improvement plan. Next slide, Z. So okay, no, can you go back to the previous one? I thought maybe there was one detailing the improvement plan. So when you need to submit the improvement plan at the end of the release of the grading, you then click on awaiting improvement plan. You will then go through whatever shortcomings have been identified during the inspection and be able to submit those to us for evaluation. Remember, the importance of an improvement plan is that we need to know that you have a plan to actually deal with your shortcomings. And just to remind colleagues that if we've not received your improvement plan, when you actually apply for training, we are not in a position to allow you to do any training if an improvement plan has not been submitted. Regardless of your grading, when we check whether you've submitted an improvement plan or not, that has a bearing on whether you will be allowed to train as well. Next slide, see. So I'm sure most of you are aware of the pharmacy grading. It is also available on the website. We're all aware that if you're a grade A or a B, you will then be allowed to conduct training, and the grading is as indicated there according to the scores. And the grading is also has a bearing on how often we actually send an inspector out to inspect you. So if you're a grade A, the cycle is every 3 years. If you're a grade B, it's every 2 years. If you're a grade C, which is what we always try to avoid, is that you will be inspected on a yearly basis until you improve. And I must say, on the grade C, most of you may be aware that we have released the board notice number 63 that talks to the removal of pharmacies. And grade C, consecutive times, 2 consecutive times, means that we have to now implement the removal process. So we would implore you to try and maintain good pharmacy practice to avoid having to be found to be grade C. And then grade D there, it's when we send an inspector and we realize that you are not in operation. Next slide. Next one, Z. I think I've done this one. Okay, the next one. So once we've received your improvement plan, we then evaluate it. As indicated earlier, you then have an opportunity to actually improve on whatever grading you would have been found by the inspector based on the evidence and the improvement plan that you have submitted. Next slide. So again, if you go onto the website, now this is on the open side, not on the secure side. There is all the information that you need there to actually prepare for yourself to get a good inspection grade. If you go under general information, under inspections, you will find all the information on what type of inspections do we conduct, the grading methodology there, how do you actually end up with a grade C, what to do when you want to apply for premises approval, when are you due for inspection, and to also familiarize yourself with the questionnaires, as well as if you want to actually log in now and do your self-inspection. Next slide. More information for you, as I've also talked to it now, the grading, if you want to read up more on how you could improve, what actually makes you a grade C, and what makes you a grade B, what are the differences there in terms of performance. It's all on the website for you to read up on. Next slide. So I will then allow for questions. I know from my side I would not be able to see the questions, but Natalie, you will assist me just to check for any questions so we can attempt to answer colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Precious. We have one question on Teams from Colleen Whitelaw. She would like to know, do you need to submit an improvement plan if you receive an A grade?
Yes, you do need to submit an improvement plan regardless of your grade. For as long as there have been shortcomings identified during the inspection, the expectation on our side is that you will then go back and put up a plan to deal with those shortcomings. So yes, indeed, regardless of your grading, as long as there are any shortcomings identified, Council would like you to work on those so that you improve. Thank you.
We have a question from YouTube. Is it fair to have the same inspector every year?
From our side, we definitely do attempt to rotate inspectors. So you would note that our inspectors are allocated per province. And what we do when we allocate inspections, we definitely do look, especially at the grade Cs, where you've had the same inspector last year. We do then try not to send the same inspector so that we avoid bias. So we do look at who had inspected you previously and try not to send the same inspector. Thank you.
Pat would like to know, if you have already done the self-inspection in February, do you have to do it again?
It's a good question, Pat. Remember what we highlighted when I started the presentation was that we do a self-inspection annually. So the expectation is that once you've submitted it, you then do not have to submit it again. But what I have to bring to your attention is that if you get appointed as an RP in a new pharmacy, you are then expected as the new RP to submit a self-inspection within 3 months of your appointment in the new pharmacy. Thank you.
Alan Friedberg on YouTube would like to know, please confirm exactly where pharmacy operating hours must be inserted on the self-inspection questionnaire.
When you go through the 26 sections, one of the sections talks to pharmacy details. So within that pharmacy details section, you should be able to put in all the details in relation to your pharmacy operation hours, the name, and all the information as required there. Thank you.
Angelique Bortner on Facebook asks, if I missed the time frame for the survey, can you open it for me?
Most definitely, if you bring it to our attention, we should be able to reactivate it for you to be able to submit that survey.
Lawrence Matabula on Facebook, does an inspector contact me telephonically before he or she comes for an inspection?
So you would all know that we have the details of the RPs on our register system. So if you have updated your details, your email address, your telephone number, your landline, the inspector has access to that information. So they should be able, if they cannot reach you telephonically, they would then be able to send an email to say, please expect me on this date. I was not able to reach you. Or even on the landline, they would then be able to phone the pharmacy and arrange for that inspection.
Mandla Mkunu on Facebook. The inspectors have a different tool for inspection which may be outdated and not have the same information with our profiles. I had an inspection on the 8th of February 2021, and the inspector said we are not compliant because the information that he has is not the same as what we have. Please look into this.
We will definitely look into that. I think the COO, before you move on, Natalie, the COO, I wanted to add or to say something.
Yeah, thanks, Precious. To the question whether the inspector needs to announce that they are coming, I think from Pharmacy Council, it's a courtesy. So there are inspections that are not announced, and there will be those that the inspector would inform you that in a week or two, they would conduct the inspection. Our expectation is that quality pharmaceutical services should continue to be offered, whether the RP is there or not there, which is why if there is a locum, our expectation is that that locum must do some induction. They need to know where to find everything, because when you are not there as the RP, there are your eyes, and they must continue providing quality pharmaceutical services in your absence. And I thought that maybe I need to reiterate that a little bit, because we are avoiding a situation where inspectors are being sent back simply because they never really announce it. It is a courtesy. Yes, we have informed them because our intention have been that all pharmacies, all of them, must get to a grade A. And for them to get to a grade A, it might help to get an RP. But safe to say, if the RP is not available, it's okay. Whoever that is in the pharmacy, the pharmacist that must be there, because you need to take leave if you have to. If you are sick, you need to take care of yourself. Whoever that is there need to understand, and there are standards that talks about condition under which the RP may be absent. We also understand that sometimes the facilities are open long hours. You want to take a break, it is okay. But make sure that the pharmacist that is there understand everything that is happening in the pharmacy. They can continue with the inspection. Because should you refuse an inspector from conducting an inspection, then we are running into trouble. I just thought that maybe let me just emphasize that please allow the inspectors to conduct an inspection. If there are things they couldn't find, you have an opportunity to submit an improvement plan. But it's important that the pharmacists that are there, they know where the SOPs are. They know how to run the pharmacy successfully in your absence. Thank you, Precious.
Thanks, COO. Natalie, the next question.
From Anonymous, how detailed does the evidence submitted in support of an improvement plan need to be?
Remember, each shortcoming will talk to a specific finding that the inspector would report to us. So what we expect is that if you have done something to improve or to correct that finding, you then have to attach that evidence to show us that contrary to what the inspector identified when they were present in the pharmacy, this is what I've done to correct it. And that evidence must talk to that. It doesn't really, it's not a matter of how large or how many documents you need to submit. It's a matter of you showing us in a form of whatever you attach that I have corrected what the inspector has reported to have been a shortcoming. Thanks, Natalie.
Michelle Bortner would like to know, when will DDR be back for all to have in pharmacy?
Z, can you assist with that one?
Thank you. Please repeat the question, Natalie.
When will DDR be back for all to have in pharmacy?
That's a very good question, Natalie. And I will say now that we would have to find an answer to that question and come back to this profession in this week already.
Thank you, Z. Michelle, if you could please pop us an email or an inbox on Facebook and we'll address your query later. Zianda, I know you wanted to answer this question from Angelique Bortma. I got a grade C because of a name change problem. We have applied, paid, and have a case number. Why did the inspector mark me as non-compliant?
Yes, thank you so much, Natalie. The inspector will come into the pharmacy and they will observe what they have found. To avoid the inspector being subjective, they have been trained to then mark, or rather to respond to the questionnaire as they find matters. Now, I love it that, for example, in this particular example, which applies to many, that they have already applied. What would then happen during the time of the improvement plan? RP, Ms. Bota will submit to say, I have already applied. We do have a case number. Either write the case number there or we are able to trace it. Now I know the issue of the name is one of the 10 non-negotiable criteria when grading happens in the inspection questionnaire. When Precious did present to us earlier, she told us that in the response, in evaluating the improvement plan, if when the office sees your response and does see, in fact, the proof that indeed there is an application submitted, a council or the registrar would overturn that submission by the inspector to say, no, they do comply, they have taken the necessary steps. Because, Angelique, it has happened, and to the colleagues, it has happened that someone says, but this is what they have done. And when we trace back, the person has not submitted such application. Maybe they thought they had, maybe it was an error on their part, but unfortunately the inspector cannot subjectively take that decision. So which is why the response comes back to the office, and the registrar through the delegation would then overturn that response by the inspector, and it should be able to change it. And please do feel free on the what is it, direct messaging, Natalie, to put in your Y number, and let's look at that improvement plan that you have submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Z. Yes, they can contact us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube in our direct messaging. We have a question from YouTube. The structure of the pharmacy where I'm employed is not up to SAPC standards in a sense that there is no counseling room and waiting area. It's a small store. This always affects my inspections. That's not a question, it's a statement. Next question, will we be informed when an inspector is coming for evaluation? As Ms. McQueen said, The inspector may call you, but it is a courtesy call. I did the self-inspection in February, but could not locate where to submit the inspection on the site.
One of the slides, or a couple of the slides that I touched on, we did actually try to show you where the self-inspection, maybe I didn't get the question clearly, Natalie, so they could not locate the self-inspection.
Yes, we've got another comment as well. I was looking for the submit button and was not sure if my inspection was saved. It's just confusing wording on the application. And then another one, could we confirm that the self-inspection was uploaded once done and submitted?
Okay, no, definitely we'll look into that. I have had a number of queries directly to my email regarding the submit button, and on checking with the RP on my side, I would actually pick up that they've done it, but clearly there is a challenge regarding that. So we'll follow up on that one, Natalie.
Great, thank you. Peter Viljoen would like to know, from when is it mandatory to do the self-inspection?
So I was hoping the senior manager practice, Ms. Mfuko, will talk to this one, but safe to say that a decision has been granted for us to extend the submission date for self-inspection. So we will be communicating with the profession regarding the new submission deadline. Thank you.
Please advise why a dispensing scale or balance is required for a clinic that does not do any small-scale manufacturing, and we get marked down because it needs to be calibrated annually.
Z, I know you've explained this one very nicely, so can I hand it over to you?
That will be fine. Thank you for that question. Remember, as a pharmacy, you are registered, either as community, as hospital, and I will talk to those particular ones. And remember, in your scope of practice, in the community or hospital sector, you can do what we call extemporaneous preparation. So it's not even about manufacturing. It is about the fact that the doctor may say, mix 500 gram of this powder with aqueous cream. You should be able to weigh such product. So perhaps you don't get much of those scripts, but because you are registered as a community pharmacy, I can just imagine that script comes in and your scale is not calibrated, and instead of getting 10 grams, you get 20 grams because of an uncalibrated scale. Maybe I must throw it here that with just on the part of calibration of scales, that council is now reviewing also that standard, because we understand and we know that most things change and we improve, that there are scales that come in with self-calibrations. So council has moved that the practice committee should then look at that standard to look how do we cater for improvements or with movement in technology of all these scales. However, I think any scale, whether it's self-calibrating or not, it must still be proven that it will do the work that it is meant to do, should you get a prescription that requires you once in a while to be weighing those products. Thank you.
Thank you, Z. A question from YouTube. We have had the same inspector every year for 2 years, and she keeps giving us a C grade because she states there are counterfeit medications. If she comes again, should I stop her from evaluating our pharmacy?
Ms. Mukwena, can you assist with that one?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. And I'm sure that if you do have, or there is, and let me put it this way, if there's a suspicion that they are counterfeit medicine, you would respond on the improvement plan. And you can apply for a self-inspection so that you can explain yourself. Because it doesn't really matter which pharmacist, which inspector does your inspection. If there is indeed the medicine that cannot be explained, we have a problem. I think let's deal with the problem, which is what there is an allegation that you have, not necessarily the inspector. I know that we try and rotate our inspectors, but in other provinces, we only have 1 or 2 inspectors. So you're more likely to have the same inspector. But if you apply for a self-inspection and you write to us and you provide the evidence, because we don't want your 3, 4, 5 inspection report keep saying you have counterfeit medicine. I think we need to solve that problem. I don't think the problem is the inspector. I think the problem is we just need to find a way to deal with yourself explaining to us maybe what is it that is the problem. And I don't want to say you have them because I don't have the evidence and I haven't seen that, but complete your self-inspection, communicate with us, let's see how we can help you. But you may not return an inspector from conducting an inspection. Allow the inspector to conduct an inspection. We are so glad we now have this platform, and let's help you to help yourself. All what we want is that very soon you must get a grade A, and you will get there, but let's solve the issue of the counterfeit medicine.
Thank you. Natalie?
Happy Maboane on YouTube asks, with load shedding as a headache in the country, if I decide to cancel dispensing fridge medicine, is it allowed? And is it a shortcoming if I stop fridge meds?
Z, can you assist with that one? Because I know that one of the sections in the inspection questionnaire deals with cold chain management. So when an inspector comes, they will definitely ask you whether you do keep medicines that require special storage, one of which being fridge medication. And I suppose if you do not keep them, then the questions would have to be marked as not applicable. But one of the questions under that section is a non-negotiable. So with regards to whether it will impact your grading, maybe Z, you can elaborate further, but because one of those is indeed a non-negotiable.
Thank you, Precious. Just to add to that, once the inspector finds that you are not keeping any fridge medicine, as Precious has said, it's not applicable. However, I would be very worried with yourself. Now, let me come to how the question was asked. With yourself stopping the service because you already have patients that are obtaining pharmaceutical services, which is thermolabile substances, in your pharmacy. And therefore, does that mean you're going to shift your patient to another pharmacy? However, again, the service that you may provide if you are a community pharmacy, that is, I'll assume now or make an example that this is a community pharmacy. According to the services in the regulations for the practice of pharmacy, you may at any time get a prescription. And this person says, I'm not going anywhere, I want my insulin here, you have the best service. If you then stop, or if you have to buy that insulin, you need the fridge, you need the backup, you need the notification should the power fail. So I guess I won't answer directly on whether you're grading. It will be according to your service offering. But the question would be, what would happen if then you get patients that need fridge items and you are the nearest accessible pharmacy to obtain pharmaceutical services in? I think those are the decisions as you are making that you should think about the patient. We do understand about load shedding. We never know when the lights will go off, but we still need to offer the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Z. We have a question from Angelique Bortma again. Who can we contact with problems with the inspection?
So with my introduction, I did mention that we are the practice unit presenting tonight to you. As the practice unit of the professional affairs in the Office of the Registrar, we are responsible for inspections. And Natalie, you are hopefully going to share our details so that colleagues know where to send their queries to.
Thanks, Precious. Yes, we will share the details shortly. From YouTube, Simangele Slongwana, kindly explain how some facility scores more than 90% but is still graded C.
Oh, thank you for that question, Simangele. As I've indicated earlier, or I touched on it under the question on the thermal label items being kept. So there are 10 questions. When you look through the questionnaire, as directed earlier, where to find them, you will notice that we have 10 questions that we deem to be non-negotiable. So if the inspector, for any of those 10 specific questions, finds that you are not compliant, your pharmacy will then automatically be a grade C, regardless of how well you perform in the other questions. So it is quite important to familiarize yourself with those 10 non-negotiable questions, and you ensure that you do comply with that, because that directly talks to your grading. And Natalie, we will also share a document on those 10 questions so that colleagues are conversant with those.
Great. Isabel would like to know, I got inspected on the 14th of December 2021, and last month when I was doing the self-inspection, I only got 2 questions on my profile instead of 26 questions.
One of the slides that I flagged earlier, Isabel talked to how to reset your questionnaire. So if you are able to log in, even if it's now, as we showed you how to log in, and you go through the steps as indicated on how to reset your questionnaire, you should be able to then access all 26 sections once you've reset your questionnaire. Thank you.
This is an anonymous question. Once the RP has submitted a self-assessment report and it didn't reach the SAPC, will such RP still be subject to disciplinary?
I would want the COO to talk to that one. COO?
Pharmacy Council has taught me to be a lawyer, and I think all of us will learn from this experience. It is always important, especially on these things that are going to end up being unprofessional conduct or you are non-compliant, that you keep the evidence. If you are able to give us the evidence that you have done what is due from your side, our system has failed you, then although you might find yourself at professional conduct, but once you give us that evidence, we'll be able to correct ourselves. I think the issue is when you are expected to provide us with a response and you don't provide that response, because I know that we do write to the RP and say, please submit an improvement plan, please submit an improvement plan. Even before you go to professional conduct, you'll get a letter which says that we've asked you to submit this, you have failed to do so, we have handed you over. It is important that you reply. And if we can have the conversation, then we don't have to take each other to professional conduct. I think our purpose is not to take people to professional conduct. Our purpose is not to get grade Bs and grade C. We are here to make sure that as we continue, we have 90% of our facilities being grade A. That's where we're going. So please respond. Where there are challenges, communicate with us so that we can help each other to make sure that 5 years from now, when we report in our annual report, we need to be at 90% grade A. And please respond to the shortcomings.
Question from Facebook. Erica Himan asks, where do I update the GPS coordinates of my pharmacy on the website?
Z, can you assist with that one?
That one, it should be under my pharmacy. But again, I think this one for Erica, if you are able to send us via direct messaging so that we check where on the RP page where you can see it, we respond to you. But I think going forward with listening to the questions that are being asked is also that we, through communication, prepare short clips of these questions with a pictorial of showing where colleagues can access all that they require, so that they can access the video quickly. You know, like you go on YouTube and look how to cook a chicken, you can access how to update GPS coordinates, so that you are able to locate that easily, because it should be there under my pharmacy that you are able to update it. Thank you.
Thank you. Why don't you have a separate inspection questionnaire for research pharmacies, as certain aspects that apply to institutional pharmacies do not apply to research pharmacies?
Can I answer? Am I audible? All right.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Look, according to the Act, under the practice regulations, there's only 5 types of pharmacies. That's what the sectors of pharmacy: and institutional, community, manufacturing, wholesale, and consultant. So what has then subsequently happened because of all these changes and developments in the service offering, for an example, research, the practice committee has commissioned a task team to look at the specialized, let me not call them specialized, these other additional services that we offer as a profession, so that we start designing questionnaires that speaks to the different service offerings. I love that question, and I wish I can talk to that person directly, because we require a whole lot of input, because sometimes there's services you do know that are being offered, but also there's services that we don't know that are being offered out there. So that comprehensively that task team would look at these additional services to ensure that our questionnaires then answer to the question of the service. Because previously, if you had noted, the questionnaires would talk mainly to the actual facility, but additional to the facility is the service that are being offered. And it excites me when there's such a question, because that means we're on the right track to try and make sure that we start aligning to the different. And by the way, it's not only research facilities, it's those offering oncology, it's those, etc. So that is why the aim of council, to be able to answer that question and to your needs specifically in the research and other additional services. Thank you.
Anthea Mapamela would like to know, the registered name of my pharmacy is not the same as the one that appears on the medication labels. I have raised the issue and was told that the name is too long and won't fit on the labels. Advice.
Madam COO.
I got the last part where the name is too long. Natalie, the first part?
The registered name of the pharmacy is not the same as the one that appears on the medication labels. I've raised the issue and was told that the name is too long and won't fit on the labels. Advice.
That's a difficult one, because that system, and I don't know which one you're using, we don't have jurisdiction over it. And it might necessarily mean that you either write that name, because there's a reason why the name of the pharmacy must appear on your medicine label. And for patient safety purposes, it could be that you might have to rethink about your trading title. I'm not aware of issues like those. This is first, and which is why it's quite important for these workshops. But you might need to rethink that trading title. There is a process for change of trading title. It's not such a long, lengthy process. But that probably could be something that you might need to consider if you don't want to retype it or rewrite it on the patient label to make sure that the name fit on that label.
Mandla Mkunu would like to know, does the SAPC really go through the improvement plan?
Can I answer?
Thanks, Natalie. Oh, okay.
Thank you. Definitely, we do. With the amount of what you call it, with the amount of requests to review the grading, it shows that the managers have gone through the self-inspection, the improvement plan, to ensure that we go through the questions, because there is a letter that's supposed to follow. So yes, all of your responses, there is definitely someone who goes through it. There's about 12 pharmacists that sit and go through your improvement plans submitted. Thank you.
Kevin Puvan, do you have to register a Sparks ATM in a pharmacy as a business in a pharmacy?
All right. In any business that is inside your pharmacy, that is not owned by yourself as the owner of that pharmacy. And I'll separate, because obviously you may be an RP employed by somebody else, but you may be an RP being the owner of the pharmacy. Any business that is inside your pharmacy that you are not the owner of, you must submit such application called a business in a business for approval with the site plans to show its access, and it must then comply with the relevant section of the GPP for a business in a pharmacy or or a pharmacy in another business. Thank you.
Nondumiso would like to know, what is acceptable as a quality improvement in terms of infrastructure shortfalls, especially in public hospitals, for example, receiving areas?
What is expected as Nata? I don't think I do understand the question, but just say it again.
What is acceptable as a quality improvement in terms of infrastructure shortfalls, especially in public hospitals, for example, receiving areas?
I hope I will be answering Nondumiso's question, and I will attempt. A quality improvement plan, or your response, is that sometimes the shortcoming that is there, you have to await your superiors to fix, ne? And so the quality response there is to show evidence that I did write and escalate that my semi-private area, the receiving area, is not sufficient for the work that is being done, and you show that you did those submissions. If there's many submissions that you have made, and whether you're saying that the superior or whoever is in charge of the budget has said you must wait for the next financial year, if there was a response, if there was no response, you mentioned that. So the improvement plan, really, you do need to be a bit detailed, especially where you have escalated a matter up. And that works also for us to say, when Pharmacy Council or the registrar wants to meet with the owners, and I'll talk about public as it was mentioned here, when we meet with the heads of pharmaceutical services, is that we have received these, and these are infrastructural. And these are what the RPs are saying. They've made submissions and they have not been corrected. Colleagues, I'd like to encourage us also, I've seen it happening in one or two instances, and I won't mention them by name, where an RP took the inspection process and used it to their advantage. They would collect the inspection reports and put it in front of their executive management to say, you see, this where we are going is not right, because now even Pharmacy Council agrees that things are not in order, and I do agree. What can we do? The drastic change we started seeing in that group, and it was actually public sector, by using the inspection questionnaire towards compliance, it was actually quite drastic. It took a bit of time, but eventually catching on, it happened very fast, because sometimes we think that it's being used just as punishment. We must use it as a learning to improve things, and to also know that things globally change and they affect us in South Africa as well. And so we have to change as such in order to align to world standards, which I believe deep down within us we're offering the best quality pharmaceutical services that we would want to be offering. I hope I answered Nondumiso's question by saying what is the quality response there. Thank you.
Thank you, Z. Angela Constance Warren asks, an error occurs on my self-inspection questionnaire under the equipment topic. I save it as complies for measuring instruments and scales, but when I save it, it shows it does not comply.
Okay, we'll certainly need a screen grab of that sent to us, as Natalie will talk about the contacting details so that we check what is happening on the background.
A question from YouTube. There's no counseling room and waiting area in my store where I'm employed. I'm always found non-compliant in that area. What would you advise is the way forward?
Which areas of counseling are not there? Consulting?
Counseling room and waiting area.
I would say, I nearly said hound the owner, but talk to the owner until the shortcoming is fixed, because those are GPP requirements. And in the GPP are the barest minimum of requirements. If it's not there, it will always be found as a shortcoming. Unfortunately, that cannot change. It is the owner of the pharmacy that needs to ensure that those are put out. It's part of the infrastructural developments, which council is willing that the owner must also take up such shortcomings. And I know that on the professional conduct side, when it is a matter that is beyond the RP and the RP has shown that they have done all that they could, they would then professional conduct would approach the owner as registered with council on such matters where RP has shown that they've done all that they possibly can. As long as all other matters that are in your control as RP are attended to. So please don't give up on talking to the owner. Unfortunately, the council can't come and build the counseling room, but definitely please use the report, as I was saying just now, that use that report as leverage to say, and even pull previous reports if you possibly can, to say these are the findings and we keep on getting this as a finding.
Peter Fullion would like to know, if the inspector said he or she is coming on Friday, but they pitch up on Saturday an hour before closing and do a rushed inspection and fail the pharmacy on questions that weren't asked, do I still need to pay for a re-inspection?
Okay. The COO has mentioned that the calling is the calling is courtesy, and also the inspector may or may not state the time that they are coming. However, and I'll come to this, an inspection is supposed to take 3 hours. Anything less than that, please submit in your in that inspection survey, and feel free to even write another email to the contact details provided to say that this happened at our pharmacy, because we do need to then address that matter. But over and above that, to answer your direct question, is the fact that if at any reason on our part we have not done things properly, we will schedule a re-inspection, perhaps with a different inspector, and you would not be charged as such. Producing evidence becomes quite key when that investigation then goes on, so that we can go through everything. An inspection is 3 hours. Colleagues, I would also encourage you under general information on the tabs under inspections, on the overview, and under inspection types, you should be able to view a document called the Code of Conduct. It's under the overview, the Code of Conduct for our inspectors. Please read through it. We have made it public so that if any of those acts the inspector has not followed that, you may be able to submit your objection at that very point in time. An investigation will happen at that moment. So I'm hoping I've covered that concern. Thank you.
Do we need a hard copy of our reference books, or is a USB or CD good enough?
The GPP does state that reference material can be either electronic or hard copy. So electronic. The one thing that becomes an issue with reference books is the fact that if you're keeping it electronic, make sure that if you're not in the pharmacy, somebody else does have access to it, because sometimes then nobody has access to it when you have logged off that computer and are left. So the issue is that whoever now is there and the pharmacy is still offering the service and dispensing, etc., if a need to reference arises, anybody that is in that pharmacy must be able to access. So it may be electronic or hard copy. Thank you.
Sandy Billy asks, is it possible to send an inspector who has experience in manufacturing to conduct an inspection of an applicant? We always have an inspector with retail experience who does not understand the processes.
That is noted. In appointment of an inspector, and I do take note of that question. In appointing our inspectors, obviously we need certain number of years of experience, 10 of them. Yes, we were trained as generalists, and manufacturing and wholesale being top. If in that province particularly we do have someone who is able to conduct a manufacturing inspection or who has much greater experience than others, because I believe all our inspectors are quite experienced, is that definitely we would be able to do so. However, the expectation is that the RP that is there is able to explain the processes to our inspection officers when they arrive in that pharmacy. Because, for example, in this matter that we're trying to iron out of making sure we rotate our inspectors, it might happen that now we might send one who is experienced this year, and then next year or in 2 years' time when we rotate, then somebody else comes whom we feel is not as experienced. Please do take it as an opportunity to take them through what happens in such plans. But we take note. We actually take note. Yeah, I wrote it down. In fact, very, very fast, that question, to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Z. BAPS Pharmacy. Hi, so if you need to employ a pharmacy assistant or intern, do we request an inspection? And if so, how do we go about doing this?
Okay, thank you for that question. So you remember one of the slides that I spoke to earlier, I reflected that you could check under the general information. You could check whether what is the process in terms of applying for premises approval. So what is important when you actually want to employ an intern or a pharmacist assistant or train a pharmacist assistant, you need to have premises approval. And we only allow training to take place in pharmacies that are grade A or grade B. So what we'd need to do is we would have to check whether on applying for premises approval, are you a grade A or are you a grade B? And based on your grading, would then approve that application for premises approval. So you do not really need to apply for an inspection. It would depend on when was your last inspection and what the grading for that inspection was. Thank you, Natalie.
Thanks, Precious. I can't submit the self-inspection online. The submit button does not appear. I have phoned the SAPC help desk and they said we will look into it. I still can't submit my self-inspection online.
I think we did speak to that question earlier. It seems to be one of our areas that we need to really look into. So it is noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Then there's a Clicks RP. My pharmacy is a grade C at the moment due to an issue with the recording license. With DOH, the owner of the pharmacy is Clicks Retailers, but with the SAPC, we are owned by Purchase and Miltons. We applied for a duplicate certificate in July 2021. We paid the application fee in November 21. We still have not received the duplicate certificate. I've called the customer care line numerous times, but they keep on saying the supervisor needs to publish it. Who can I contact to get feedback with regards to the duplicate certificate?
I think, Natalie, because this is a specific case that I would be able to follow up on my side, so we would make my details available to the Clicks RP, so that we expedite the reprinting of that certificate. Thanks.
Thank you, Zia. I'm replying with your email address. Sorry, Precious. Why is there no response after you have done an improvement plan?
So once an improvement plan done, we do send an acceptance letter, or based on our evaluation, you will also receive a letter that indicates whether we have accepted or not accepted your improvement plan. So I am not sure why you would not be able to see that, but at the point of having finished an evaluation of an improvement plan, we then do email or send out communication to say your improvement plan has been accepted or your improvement plan has not been accepted. I think we just need to follow up maybe on that particular, or your contact details if you've not received any communication regarding that.
Thanks, Precious. We have an anonymous question. In a manufacturing pharmacy with no stock, why are we marked as a negative finding when we don't have name tags? We are not patient-facing, only regulatory affair and QA.
Okay, Ms. Mukwena, maybe the question on name tags.
No, thank you so much. The inspection questionnaire is so the inspectors, they just take the information as it is published. I think in years to come, probably we could review the issues like those, but currently we are seeing in other plants where people wear their name tags. So it has never really been a big issue on our side, because even when the inspectors walk in, they will want to know who is a pharmacist, who is not. But safe to say, it's currently on the GPP. Remember how we developed the inspection questionnaire? It is informed by the GPP standards. So if it is in the GPP, the inspectors are just asking what is already there in the GPP standard. It's not only for the patient. By the way, at Pharmacy Council, we also do wear the name tags. It's just for proper identification. When you come and visit us, you are able to know exactly who you are talking to. So it is one of just the best practice. You go to SPA, you go to Checkers. Sorry for mentioning names. It is just for any other person to know who they are talking to. So it's just, I would safely say in Pharmacy Council, one of our values is Ubuntu. And for you to practice Ubuntu, you need to talk to know who you're talking to. So we will encourage that not for pharmacy, but just for an organization, it is quite important that you just know who you're talking to. It's always nice to be able to know the person that you are talking to. But if it's a big issue, it is something that Pharmacy Council can look at when they review the GPP, because the GPP fit into the inspection questionnaire. Safe to say your concern is noted, and we'll see how it goes with time.
Thank you, Ms. Mokoena. We have no further questions. If any RPs or attendees have any other queries, they can contact us on customercare@sapc.za.org. Call us at the call centre on 0861 727200 or 012 319 8500. Or you can contact us via social media. Our handle is @officialSAPC. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalie. We will hand over to the COO to do the vote of thanks and close the session for us. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, team. I think for me, it's just to thank each and everyone for this participation in this session. Really, it's long overdue, and we appreciate all the questions that you have asked, because we cannot build this profession if we are not communicating. For us, we also want to thank you for the great work that you're doing. I mean, when you are asking the question, I was very, very proud, because you can only ask this question to make sure that we continue raising the pharmacy flag. I don't want to say Pharmacy Council, the pharmacy flag high as proud pharmacists. And we really, really thank you for that. Safe to say, moving forward, we are going to continue with the sessions. I'm not so sure how frequent. I don't want to put Zianda and the team on the spot, but we have seen the need for us to communicate with yourself, because we want to empower you. We want, when an inspector walk in the pharmacy, you take them through that inspection assessment very, very fast, because you already know that these are the things that need to be done. We would want to see RPs taking over the inspection itself. In other countries, we've realized that they've way past the inspection grading cycle and what we are doing, because people are just submitting the self-inspection and we're just doing 1 or 2 inspection as, you know, the need arise. They have already passed the highest percentage of compliance when they send their inspectors. I was actually looking at our report now that we're going to present to the practice committee on Wednesday. We are just above 60% grade A. We come very far, for those who know. And our plan is that in the coming 3-4 years, we want to be at 90% compliant. And we can only do that if we work together, if we train each other, if we walk this path together. From my side and my team is just to say thank you so much for making time to listen to us. We were happy to also communicate with yourself. Also just to thank the communication team. We always drag them to all these workshops and they've always supported us. And we appreciate Ntatamadumeja Natalie now. Thank you so much, and the practice team. But most importantly, the RPs that took their time to sit and listen to us. I think together we can do really great for this country, and we can really provide the best pharmaceutical services if we all pull together. We can even publish some of the great work internationally. South Africa could be a benchmark to the international world. We are already doing very, very well with your assistant in Africa. Africa is using us as a benchmark, but we want to go internationally. And we know if we all work together and become proud pharmacists, we can do that. We can really, really provide the best pharmaceutical services. While we also plan for NHI, I can't talk about NHI. If I start, I'm not going to release you. But from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the registrar and council, thank you so much for the great work you do out there. And good evening. Goodbye.